Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Essentially Meg, and I want to walk you through how to write a great wedding speech. So this past weekend, I attended my best friend's wedding, and I had the honor of being his best woman at his wedding. Now, along with all of the other fun things that come along with being a best person in a wedding, it's likely that you'll have to write a speech. I am by no means an expert speechwriter, but I don't think that many of us are. So these are my tips on how to write a great wedding speech if you don't write speeches for a living. So number one is what you're doing right now, which is preparing and researching. Don't try to just run up there and do a speech off the cuff, because it very rarely turns out okay. And on the occasions that it does turn out okay, it's usually because that person speaks off the cuff for a living or speaks off the cuff all the time. So for the rest of us normal people, I would suggest writing it out ahead of time and rehearsing it, maybe a week, 2 weeks ahead of time, so that you can give yourself enough time to kind of tweak it as you go. Number two would be look up examples and templates. That was the most helpful thing whenever I was creating a speech. I went online, I just Google image searched wedding speeches, and I read a few, and I took the things that I liked from the ones that I read and discarded the things that I didn't felt applied. And I just kind of put them together and then substituted in my own experiences, my own words. But you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create something completely from scratch. You can start with a template. You can start with other people's examples, and it'll make the whole process a lot easier. So number three, after reading through a few examples, you might start to have your own ideas of what you should be putting in there. I would say take a little bit of time to start brainstorming some of your fondest memories with that person. See if there's any kind of jokes that come to your head because of those memories, or because of your relationship, or because of their relationship. Start writing these things down so that you have a bank to pull from whenever you are assembling the speech. Some common things to think about would be how you met, which can be funny if you're a sibling, because I met you when I was born. Another common experience is when you met their partner for the first time, or when they told you about meeting their partner for the first time. Or if you have any really standout moments in your life with that person. You don't even need to use a standout moment. If you don't feel like you have one that you would like to share, you can go with more of a mundane moment that just makes it special because you were with them. For example, I referenced playing a board game in my living room with my best friend whenever we were growing up. That's not really a huge life moment, but it was special to me, and so that's what I decided to reference in my speech. All right, so number four, now that you've got kind of some prep work out of the way, you've got your pieces, you've got your template, let's start building the speech. Start with the introduction. You don't want to just start jumping in. You need to introduce yourself. So how do you know this person? You can say, I'm Meg, I'm the best woman, and I've known my best friend for however many years. Or I've known my best friend since middle school. Give anyone who's there who doesn't know you a little bit of context about how you are connected to the couple. And something nice to throw in at the end of the introduction would be how you've gotten to know the person that they are with over the last few years, or however long it was, and you can now happily call them a friend as well. It's a great way to kind of round out the end of the introduction and start moving into the main body of the speech. Now, the body of the speech is where all those stories and anecdotes come into play, also the jokes. You want to keep this kind of short. I would say share 1-2 stories max about the person that you are standing up for. It's called standing up at a wedding. If you are in the wedding party, you're standing with them, you're standing up with them. And unless you are a stand-up comic for a living, I would say keep the jokes closer to the beginning of the speech and get more sentimental at the end of the speech. It's a pretty common tactic to try and get some laughs and some engagement at the beginning, and then to make it very sincere at the end. But after your first story about the person that you are closest with, then I would suggest putting in a short story about either the couple together or your experience with the other person in that couple. You don't want to make the entire speech about yourself, and you don't want to make the entire speech about one person out of the couple. You want to make it about them together because the event is about them joining together. After you get through these two parts of the body of the speech, then you can start wrapping it up. Again, this is where I tend to get a little bit more sentimental with my speech, but some people carry the jokes all the way through. In any case, a lot of times at this part of the speech, you give the couple a direction, like look at each other or look around the room, and you express the sentiment that you most want them to feel in that moment. For me, I ended up saying, look around the room and see all of these smiling faces looking at you and bask in the comfort that they are here because they love you and they support you. And I also talked about how there's going to be many life celebrations to come, and we're all going to be so happy to join them in those. Again, a lot of this language can be borrowed from other examples because there's a famous quote that nothing is ever truly new, everything is a little bit of plagiarism. Don't worry about making sure that your speech is the most unique and something that nobody has ever heard, because anybody who's been to a couple of weddings is going to have heard quite a few of these kinds of speeches before. So take the pressure off of yourself, it's gonna be fine. And you always wanna end the speech with a toast. So cheers to the couple. Otherwise, everybody's just kind of like, you end and you're like, okay, that's kind of all I have. And it's kind of anticlimactic. After all this work that you put into the beginning of the speech, you want to end it with a bang, and cheers is a great way to do it. A couple of final tips that I have are try to keep it short and rehearse. A good way to do this is to read the speech to a camera or record yourself in some way and time it. So put a timer on your phone and try to see how long this speech is going to be. Typically, wedding speeches, you want to keep it under 2 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, because people don't have that much attention span. So you want to keep it kind of short. You don't want to share too many stories. If you throw in a couple of jokes, then you'll keep them engaged. Everybody will be laughing and having a good time. Now, speaking of jokes, if you want to make a lot of off-color jokes, if you want to roast the couple, then I would recommend at least checking with them ahead of time that they're okay with being roasted. I'm sure that there are couples out there who did not expect to be roasted at their wedding, and they had to put on a nice face whenever it was happening, but it probably wasn't that appreciated out of the blue. But if that's just the nature of your relationship, I would say just double check that they're all right with that being the route you want to take with your speech. Check if they're fine with a risque joke, or a few, or if they want to keep it a little bit more clean because of the audience that you're speaking to. You don't want to offend grandma's sensibilities. But overall, remember to have fun with this. This is a special moment, and it is an honor that they're asking you to do this. Not very many people get up to give speeches at weddings. It's usually just the couple's closest friends and parents, maybe sibling. So it really is showing how close they feel to you. Now, like I said, I'm not an expert speechwriter. This is actually the first time that I ever stood up and gave a speech at someone's wedding, and I feel like it went pretty well. The things that I would change would be that I needed to give myself some pauses where I did kind of crack a joke, and I didn't pause after the joke long enough for a couple of people to laugh. I just kind of like barreled straight through to the next sentence, and I started kind of like talking over people laughing, which was probably not the best course. And then I did end up pausing a little bit later in the speech for it, but it's better to rehearse a little bit and to say it to a couple of people. Don't say it to the couple that is getting married, because you want this speech to be a surprise. It's kind of like giving them a gift. So tell it to your partner, tell it to a different best friend if they can keep a secret, tell it to your parents. See what they think. If you need a little bit of editing or if you need a little bit of encouragement, let them know ahead of time on that speech so that they can give you what you need. You don't need to commit this to memory and recite it without any kind of aids. You can always have a phone or a note card in front of you. Just remember to set it down and pick up your glass when you're about to say cheers. Well, I hope that you liked this video, and if it was helpful, please hit like and subscribe down below. And the question of the day is, have you ever given a wedding speech? Do you have any funny stories about when it happened, or did it go all to plan and it was fine? Leave your answer in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. You need to stop saying you're fine. You're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. You're gonna be fine.